Disrespected and humiliated in luxury hotel. Black billionaire returns days later and shocks everyone by becoming the new owner of the place. Marcus Walker, a self-made African-American billionaire and founder of one of the largest technology companies in the United States, seeks a moment of peace amidst the turmoil of his life. He chooses a renowned luxury hotel in Manhattan, New York, in an attempt to relax, but instead encounters hostility and prejudice. Coming from a humble neighborhood in Chicago, Marcus has overcome numerous challenges to build his empire, yet the suspicious glances from elitist circles still haunt him. Upon arriving at the hotel, Marcus, who values discretion, opts for casual clothing and does not bring an entourage. This choice, rather than going unnoticed, provokes a negative reaction. Richard Keaton, the hotel manager, a middle-aged man who prides himself on his impeccable appearance, receives Marcus with veiled disdain. Instead of welcoming the billionaire as a VIP guest, Richard asks pointed questions and subtly suggests that he does not belong there. Marcus's attempts to introduce himself are ignored, and he realizes he is being viewed through a lens of prejudice. Richard, who hides deep insecurities beneath a facade of friendliness, grew up in a wealthy family, but lost his fortune in a series of financial failures. The need to reaffirm his importance in his current position leads him to treat only a select group of guests with the respect they deserve. In the luxurious setting of the hotel, with views of Central Park and gleaming marble, he orders that Marcus be accommodated in an inferior room, also limiting his access to exclusive areas. Deeply disappointed and offended, Marcus leaves the hotel in silence, but the incident ignites a determined idea in his mind. After reflecting on the humiliation he suffered, Marcus decides that he will not be defeated. Using his contacts and his fortune, he discreetly buys the hotel and days later returns to the location as the new owner, but without revealing his true identity. The atmosphere in the hotel becomes tense. Rumors about the new owner begin to circulate, but no one imagines that the man who was previously disrespected is now in charge. In a meeting with all the staff, Marcus reveals who he really is. He remains calm as he communicates his expectations for the new management. Richard, stunned, finally understands the consequences of his prejudice. Instead of seeking revenge, Marcus seizes the opportunity to transform the culture of the hotel. He implements significant reforms, including mandatory diversity training and a scholarship program for young people from underprivileged communities who wish to pursue careers in hospitality. Richard, now unemployed, watches from a distance as the hotel thrives under Marcus's new inclusive management, reflecting on the weight of his past attitudes. This narrative, unfolding amidst the opulence of a luxury hotel in Manhattan, not only examines issues of prejudice and redemption, but also illustrates the strength of a constructive response to discrimination. Black billionaire is humiliated in luxury hotel, but returns days later as the new owner, is a story of resilience and social transformation, where humiliation turns into a powerful opportunity for change. Marcus Walker was determined not to let Richard Keaton's hostility affect him. However, upon leaving the hotel, he felt a mix of frustration and sadness. The humiliation he suffered was not just a blow to his ego, but a reminder that even after achieving so much, prejudice still existed. He wondered why, instead of being welcomed, he was treated like an intruder in a space that should be inclusive. In the days that followed, as he reflected on the incident, Marcus began to feel a growing fire within himself. It was the need to transform his pain into something positive. He started planning the purchase of the hotel, but knew the path would not be easy. The first challenge arose when trying to find an intermediary who could handle the acquisition without raising suspicion. Many of his contacts, who had previously held him in high regard, turned out to be skeptical. After all, why would a black billionaire buy a luxury hotel? Marcus faced resistance from his circle, who warned him about the possibility of criticism and scandal. He felt the pressure to maintain his public image, but the determination to change the culture of the hotel drove him to move forward. He knew that to turn his vision into reality, he would need allies. It was at that moment that he met Sarah, a young event manager at the hotel, who was passionate about her profession and tired of the discriminatory practices she witnessed daily. Sarah had always stood out for her dedication and skill in creating memorable experiences for guests, but the need to please management often left her in conflict. When Marcus introduced himself as a potential investor, she saw an opportunity for change. The connection between them was instant. Sarah admired Marcus's vision, and shared his frustrations about the hotel's elitist culture. As the duo worked on their purchasing strategy, Marcus also began to feel the weight of expectations. He knew that his journey would not just be about acquiring the hotel, but also about the responsibility of promoting real change. The fear of failure began to haunt him. What if the transformation didn't work? What if he couldn't overcome the resistance of a team that was used to a culture of exclusion? Marcus's insecurity manifested in moments of doubt. He wondered if his efforts would be enough to reverse years of prejudice and discrimination. On some nights, he found himself awake, analyzing his journey, wondering if the pain he had felt could truly be transformed into something meaningful. At stake was not only his financial success, but also his integrity and the chance to help others who, like him, had fought against discrimination. Meanwhile, Richard, who had been fired, was trying to deal with the consequences of his actions. He felt like a burden, unable to accept that his prejudice had led him to lose the job of his dreams. His life, once filled with privileges, was now steeped in uncertainty. The pressure to maintain his social status consumed him, and in a desperate attempt to recover what he had lost, he began investigating the new owner of the hotel. Richard was not prepared for what he would discover. When he learned that the new owner was Marcus, anger and shame mixed within him. He recalled every word he had spoken against Marcus, every look of disdain. Now he felt he had lost not just a job, but also the chance to redeem himself. The atmosphere in the hotel was changing, but not in the way Richard had expected. Marcus and Sarah had launched a training program for employees, addressing topics such as diversity and inclusion. At first, some employees resisted. The idea that a black billionaire was there to promote change seemed absurd to some, especially those who had already benefited from the hotel's elitist culture. Marcus quickly realized that the resistance was a significant obstacle. He began to question his own strength and the beliefs that had guided him up to that point. He remembered his humble beginnings, the struggles he faced in Chicago, and decided that he needed to be more than just a leader. He needed to be an example. During one of the team meetings, Marcus shared his personal story. He spoke about the hardships he had overcome and the lessons he had learned along the way. The atmosphere in the room changed. People began to listen, connecting with the experience of someone who, despite his successes, still carried scars. What had started as resistance began to transform into empathy. As spring approached, Marcus's determination grew. He knew that the journey was just beginning and that the challenges ahead would test not only his resilience, but also his character. The transformation of the hotel would reflect his own growth, and he was determined not to fail. Marcus Walker felt that the pressures on his shoulders were increasing every day. The transformation of the hotel was not just a business matter, it was a personal mission. However, the challenges seemed to multiply. The resistance from some employees made the environment hostile, and conversations about diversity, which should have been constructive, often turned into heated debates. Marcus's frustration grew, reflecting in his emotional state. He felt as if he was swimming upstream, struggling to get others to see the value of change. Sarah, his ally, was also facing her own battles. Although excited about Marcus's vision, she felt torn. Over time, she realized that the resistance was not only coming from co-workers, but also from her own team. Some were uncomfortable with the new focus on inclusion, fearing it threatened their jobs and the status they had built. When Sarah tried to address these issues, she was often seen as a traitor. The pressure on her increased, and the friendship between Sarah and Marcus began to be tested by the complexity of the situation. In one meeting, a long-time employee who had worked at the hotel for decades stood up and expressed his discontent. He spoke about how Marcus and Sarah's new direction was dismantling everything the hotel represented, and his words resonated with others who shared his view. Marcus felt the weight of disapproval and the pain of seeing his vision attacked. Frustration turned into sadness, and he questioned whether he could really make a difference. The tension began to affect not only the work environment, but also Marcus's health. Sleepless nights became more frequent, and he found himself struggling with anxiety. He began to question whether he was truly prepared for this responsibility. The idea of failing, of not being able to change the hotel's culture, haunted him. He knew that his fight was not just for himself, but for all those who had been marginalized. However, doubt consumed him, and he wondered if he could withstand the pressure. Meanwhile, Richard, in his search for redemption, began to observe Marcus and Sarah more closely. He was determined to find a way to sabotage their plans, believing that if he couldn't have the hotel, no one else should. Richard joined a group of former employees who also felt betrayed by the change. Together, they began to conspire, spreading rumors and trying to discredit the new management. To them, Marcus's vision was a threat that needed to be eliminated. When Marcus discovered Richard's movements, anger took hold of him. He knew he would need to deal with this intelligently and not let Richard's negativity affect him. However, the emotional weight of the situation began to cause him even more stress. He felt trapped in a cycle of doubt and insecurity, and the thought that Richard could undermine his efforts made everything harder. As the days passed, the situation at the hotel grew more tense. In a crucial meeting, where Marcus was to present a new inclusion initiative, the atmosphere was charged with hostility. Some employees, encouraged by Richard, began to interrupt him, questioning his intentions and challenging his authority. The pressure was at its peak. Marcus felt the adrenaline rise, and his voice wavered as he tried to defend his vision. He wanted to shout, but instead he took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. Sarah's support was visible, but he knew he needed to assert himself. Before we continue with this thrilling story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any stories. And let us know which city you are watching this video from in the comments. Tears of frustration threatened to slip down his face, but he remembered his journey and the lessons he had learned. He realized that this battle wasn't just about the hotel, but about overcoming prejudice and building a space where everyone could feel welcome. With this new perspective, he decided he could not give up. He looked into the eyes of his colleagues one by one and shared his story of overcoming. He spoke about his origins, his challenges, and how prejudice still affected him, even at the height of his success. Marcus's words began to break down some barriers. He saw hardened faces start to soften, although the resistance was still present. The determination emanating from him began to have an effect, and some employees started to feel inspired, but the battle was far from over. The pressure on him was increasing, and Richard's shadow still loomed over the hotel. The friendship between Marcus and Sarah was also at a crossroads. Sarah began to feel that the expectations placed on her were more than she could bear. She wanted to help, but the weight of the criticism made her insecure. The differences between them began to surface, with Sarah expressing her fear that Marcus's struggle was becoming an obsession. This conversation brought forth a dilemma. How far were they willing to go to see their visions become reality? Marcus was at a critical point. He needed to decide whether to continue with his mission, facing the challenges and fears, or to back down, allowing prejudice and resistance to defeat him. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The fight for change was just beginning, and he needed to find the strength to move forward, even in the face of growing difficulties. Marcus was in a fragile state of mind. The difficult meetings, constant criticism, and resistance from his team weighed heavily on his heart and mind. On a particularly challenging day, he decided to take a walk around the hotel to clear his thoughts. As he walked through the halls, he noticed a small group of employees gathered in a corner whispering. One of them, a young intern named Lucas, noticed Marcus and in an act of courage approached him. "I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Walker, but I would like to talk to you," Lucas said, hesitantly but determined. "I know the situation here is complicated, and many are unhappy, but I feel that you're trying to do something good. I just don't know how to help." Marcus looked into the young man's eyes and saw a spark of hope. What Lucas said touched a part of him that had long been dormant. He realized that despite all the difficulty, there were people who believed in the change he was promoting. But before he could respond, Lucas continued, "I heard some things about what Richard and the others are doing. They are planning something that could harm you and Sarah." The revelation hit like a bombshell. Marcus felt his heart race. He knew Richard was a threat, but he hadn't imagined that he would be organizing such a coordinated attack. The idea that his struggle was being sabotaged from the inside made him reconsider everything he had faced so far. He felt powerless, as if all his effort was about to crumble. "I don't know what to do," Marcus confessed, his voice trembling. "I thought I could change things, but now I feel like I'm losing control." Lucas looked at Marcus with empathy. "Sometimes people need to see that you truly care. Maybe you need to show them that change is not a threat, but an opportunity." These words echoed in Marcus's mind. He realized that in the past few months, he had focused so much on convincing others to change that he had forgotten the main thing, human connection. That revelation was a turning point. He began to understand that true change didn't come just from policies and guidelines, but from building relationships, from creating an environment where everyone felt heard and valued. With a new sense of purpose, Marcus decided that he needed to confront Richard and his gang of resistance head-on, but not in the way they expected. Instead of confronting them with anger or despair, he chose a more collaborative approach. Marcus called for an open meeting with all employees, including those who opposed his ideas. At the meeting, he spoke from the heart. He shared his vulnerabilities, his failures, and the lessons he had learned along the way. He did not present himself as a distant leader, but as someone who was also seeking a space where he could be accepted and respected. He asked everyone to share their concerns, their hopes, and what each one could do to contribute to a better environment. The emotional impact was profound. People began to open up. Stories of fear, insecurity, and prejudice started to emerge, and as the voices united, Marcus felt the energy in the room shift. He saw that the resistance did not come solely from a desire to maintain the old ways, but from fear of the unknown. Understanding and empathy began to create a new space for dialogue. But the most significant revelation came when one of the most critical employees, the same one who had spoken up in a previous meeting, began to talk. He expressed his concerns about the change, but also revealed his own insecurities. "I am afraid of losing my place here. What will happen to me if all of this changes? What if I no longer fit in?" The words of this employee resonated in many hearts. It was a common struggle, an internal battle that everyone faced to a greater or lesser extent. Marcus realized that instead of fighting against Richard and his faction, he could shift the focus to building a collaborative and inclusive environment. The conversation continued for hours, and by the end, a new energy permeated the space. The divisions began to dissolve, and the idea that everyone could be part of the change began to take shape. Fear was replaced by hope, and Marcus felt that finally, the hotel could become what he had always dreamed. Still, Richard's shadow remained. He knew that the challenge was not completely resolved, but now he had a new strategy, not just to fight against the resistance, but to unite people around a common goal. This new perspective brought a sense of relief and renewal to Marcus. He was no longer alone. There was an army of voices willing to fight by his side. As he left the meeting, a wave of emotion enveloped him. Marcus realized that true victory was not just about transforming the hotel, but transforming the lives of the people who worked there. He was ready to face the new challenges that would come, no longer as a solitary man on his mission, but as a leader who understood the power of community and human connection. After the meeting, Marcus felt different. The atmosphere in the hotel had changed, and he realized that, for the first time in a long time, there was hope. People were willing to listen and open up. However, Richard's shadow still lingered over him. Marcus knew that the resistance would not disappear easily. Richard was cunning and had loyal followers who would not accept change without a fight. In the days that followed, Marcus dedicated himself to creating a more collaborative work environment. He organized small discussion groups where employees could share their ideas and concerns without fear of retaliation. He wanted everyone to feel part of the process, not just spectators, but while he was busy with this task, Richard began to take action. He met with some team members who were still unhappy and started to plant seeds of doubt. "Marcus doesn't know what he's doing," Richard whispered. "He may have succeeded with some, but most of us still feel insecure. What happens when the changes don't work?" These words began to circulate among the employees who, despite being open to change, still had fears. That morning, during an informal breakfast, Marcus sensed the tension in the air. He saw some familiar closed faces and others that used to be warm, now hesitant. When a colleague approached him, her worried expression made it clear that something was wrong. "Marcus, have you seen how Richard is acting?" she asked, looking around as if wanting to ensure no one else heard. "He is convincing people that you can't be trusted. What if he succeeds?" Her concern reflected in Marcus's mind. He felt a tightening in his chest. What he had built could crumble. He knew he needed to act, but how? The fear of failure began to seep into his renewed confidence. He decided he needed to confront Richard, but not with anger. He needed a plan. That night, as he walked down the hotel corridor, Marcus had a moment of introspection. He remembered what Lucas had said about how people need to see that he cares. He recalled the stories shared in the meeting and how every voice mattered. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the determination grow within him. He couldn't let fear paralyze him. The next day, he organized a new meeting, this time with Richard present. Marcus knew this would be risky, but he felt it was the only way to bring the truth to light. When Richard entered the room, the tension was palpable. The employees were divided between loyalty to Marcus and curiosity about what Richard had to say. "Marcus, do you really think you can lead this?" Richard began, his tone disdainful. "People are scared and you are not listening. You are just trying to shove your ideas down our throats." Marcus took a deep breath and, instead of being provoked, spoke calmly. "Richard, I understand your point of view, but if we continue to act like this, what will happen to all of us? Can we work together to find a solution that works for everyone?" The room fell silent. The confrontation was there, but Marcus knew he needed to do more than just confront Richard. He needed to show that change was an opportunity, not a threat. He invited people to express themselves, to talk about their fears and hopes. Gradually, the voices began to emerge again, and this time there was a sense of unity. Still, not everything was easy. In the following weeks, Marcus realized that he needed to remain vigilant. Richard continued to try to destabilize the team, spreading rumors and fostering distrust. In a difficult moment, Marcus found himself in the office, feeling the pressure mounting. He realized he needed support. He decided to seek help from Sarah, his closest colleague and someone he trusted. By sharing his concerns, Marcus felt a weight lifted off his shoulders. Sarah, with her wisdom and understanding, suggested that they hold an informal meeting outside the workplace, something that could help ease tensions and strengthen team bonds. On the day of the gathering, seeing people come together with smiles and laughter, Marcus felt a sense of relief. He realized that despite the challenges, there was still a genuine desire for connection. What began as a struggle for acceptance transformed into a collective commitment to build a better environment. As he looked at the faces around him, Marcus understood that true change was not just a goal to be achieved, but a process that required patience, empathy, and above all, unity. He was aware that obstacles were still present, but now, instead of feeling alone, he had an army of voices willing to fight by his side. And with this newfound strength, he felt he could face any challenge that came his way. Marcus found himself at a crucial point in his journey. The atmosphere around him was changing, but the shadow of Richard still haunted him. He realized that despite having taken important steps toward collaboration and openness, there was still a long way to go. The challenge of transforming not only the team, but also himself was greater than he had imagined. In the days that followed, Marcus made a conscious effort to listen more and connect with team members. He remembered Sarah's words. True leadership comes from understanding and empathy. Whenever a new idea or suggestion arose, he strived to listen attentively, even when opinions were critical. This practice helped him develop a quiet confidence that he had not possessed before. He began to realize that the fear of Richard was not a sign of weakness, but an opportunity to show his inner strength. With each small victory, such as when a shy employee finally shared a valuable idea, Marcus felt a wave of gratitude. He began to understand that true success was not just in receiving recognition, but in creating a space where everyone felt valued. This was a lesson he had never learned before. The wealth of a united group is far more significant than any individual award. However, Richard did not give up easily. He continued to sow doubt and undermine the confidence that Marcus was slowly building. One morning, during a team meeting, Richard struck again. "Do you really believe Marcus can lead? Look at what's happening. He doesn't have a clear plan." Richard's words cut through the air like sharp knives. Marcus felt a chill in his stomach, but instead of letting it shake him, he decided to respond calmly. "Richard, I understand your concerns, but let's discuss together how we can overcome these challenges. This is a safe space for all of us." Marcus's response surprised everyone, and for a moment, silence filled the room. He realized that even in the face of adversity, he had the ability to stay calm and steer the conversation toward a positive place. This new perspective, which emerged amidst confrontation, was a sign of his growth. That same week, seeking support, Marcus met with Sarah. They talked about the impact Richard was having and the need to strengthen team bonds. Sarah suggested an informal outing, something that could help everyone get to know each other better, away from the daily tensions. Marcus loved the idea and began to plan the event. The day of the gathering arrived, and seeing the smiling and excited faces of his colleagues, Marcus felt a wave of hope. He realized that despite the challenges, there was a genuine desire to connect and support one another. During the evening, as laughter echoed, he reflected on his own transformation. He had learned that true strength did not come from fighting against others, but from bringing people together around a common goal. Conversations flowed naturally, and friendships began to blossom. What had once been a divided group started to transform into a cohesive team. Marcus saw people opening up, sharing stories and concerns, and this filled him with joy. He realized that by allowing others to express themselves, he was creating a space where everyone could thrive. As he watched his colleagues interacting, Marcus realized that he had found a new meaning for his role. He was not just a leader seeking success, he was a facilitator of growth and transformation. The true success, he realized, was not measured by financial goals or recognition, but by the ability to make a difference in the lives of those around him. Each day, Marcus became more confident in himself. He learned that accepting help and support was not a sign of weakness, but a demonstration of strength. He began to apply the lessons he learned, listening more, being kinder, and sharing his own fears and vulnerabilities. This new approach not only helped him face Richard, but also solidified his role as a respected and beloved leader. Marcus still had much to learn, but now he was willing to face any challenge that arose. He felt empowered by the unity of the team and the certainty that together they could overcome any obstacle. With this new perspective, he embarked on his journey with renewed enthusiasm, ready to build a future where everyone could shine. Marcus was about to face the greatest challenge of his journey. The atmosphere in the conference room was tense, and he could feel the anticipation in the air. It was the day of the presentation of a new project that could change the dynamic of the team and possibly the direction of the company. Everyone was anxious, but Richard, as always, was ready to attack. At the beginning of the meeting, Marcus gave a brief introduction. He spoke about the importance of teamwork and collaboration. The team seemed receptive, but he knew Richard was just waiting for the right opportunity to strike, and it didn't take long to appear. Richard shot his words, which echoed like thunder in the room. Marcus felt his heart race. He knew this was a crucial question, not just about the project, but about his own leadership. It was time to show everyone, including himself, how much he had changed. Inspired by the empathy he had cultivated, he took a deep breath and decided he wouldn't let anger or fear dominate the situation. Marcus calmly responded that he appreciated Richard's point of view. However, what they were looking for here was a new way of working together. He trusted everyone in the room and believed they could find solutions that would benefit everyone. "Let's discuss the concerns you raised," he said. Silence filled the room for a moment. The team watched attentively as Richard seemed surprised by the response. What had once been a solitary battle for leadership was now turning into a constructive dialogue. Marcus felt a wave of determination. He was determined to turn adversity into an opportunity. From that moment on, Marcus asked each team member to share their opinions on the project. One by one, they began to speak, bringing ideas and suggestions. He realized that by opening the space for everyone's voice, he was not only strengthening the team, but also disarming Richard. As the discussion progressed, Marcus noticed that Richard, although still skeptical, was beginning to listen. The team was coming together around a common goal. The conversations became livelier, and critiques transformed into constructive proposals. Marcus said that this was the essence of what they were trying to build, almost to himself, as he watched the transformation happening before his eyes. He felt he was living the truth he had learned. True strength comes from collaboration, understanding, and empathy. When the meeting came to an end, a new energy filled the room. Marcus looked at Richard, who was staring at him with an unreadable expression. He realized that despite the difficulties, he had managed to create a space where everyone felt heard and respected. Richard was no longer an enemy. He was a team member who, like everyone else, had his insecurities and fears. Outside the room, as the team dispersed, Marcus approached Richard. He said he knew Richard had concerns and he was there to listen and learn from him too, extending his hand. Richard hesitated, but finally accepted the gesture. Richard replied that he just wanted to protect what they had achieved, his voice a little softer, but maybe he had been too harsh. Marcus said they were all learning, and they should work together to make it work. Together they were stronger, he said, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. Marcus's journey didn't end there, but he knew he had taken a significant step. He had overcome the fear that had imprisoned him and discovered the strength that existed within him. He realized that success was not just about financial results, but about the ability to unite people and create an environment where everyone could thrive. As he left the office, Marcus felt warmth in his chest. He had transformed not only his team, but himself. He had learned that true leadership was not about being in control, but about being present, listening, and building together. Now he was ready to face any challenge, not as a solitary leader, but as part of a united and strong team. After the meeting, Marcus felt a mix of relief and euphoria. He had managed to turn a potentially destructive moment into an opportunity for growth. As he walked through the company corridors, he could hear the whispers of his colleagues around him. Some praised how he had handled Richard, while others commented on the ideas that had emerged during the discussion. He realized that the atmosphere in the team had changed. There was a new sense of camaraderie, a feeling that everyone was in it together on the same journey. In the following days, Marcus dedicated himself to strengthening the new connections he had created. He organized small, informal meetings where the team could discuss ideas and concerns without the pressure of a formal presentation. In each meeting, he noticed how people felt more comfortable expressing themselves. The atmosphere became lighter, and creativity flourished. Each team member seemed more engaged and motivated. But it wasn't just the team that changed. Marcus was also transforming. He began to understand that leadership was not just about delegating tasks or making decisions. It was about inspiring and supporting those around him. In a conversation with his assistant Anna, she commented that she really felt the team was more united now. It seemed like he had brought something new to all of them. These words touched Marcus deeply. He realized that by opening space for everyone to express themselves, he had helped build an environment where people felt valued. He smiled, reflecting on what this meant not just for the team, but also for him. There was a new purpose in his role, and it filled him in a way he had never imagined. However, not everything was perfect. Richard still had some reservations. Although he had accepted Marcus's outstretched hand, there were moments when distrust arose again. In a subsequent meeting, Richard made a cutting remark about one of the action plans the team had suggested. Marcus felt the tension in the air, but instead of reacting defensively, he decided to use the same approach that had helped him before. Marcus said, "Richard, I understand that you have concerns. Let's discuss what isn't working and see how we can adjust this together," maintaining a calm tone. Richard's response was somewhat more measured, and after an open discussion, they both managed to find common ground. Marcus realized that even in disagreements, there was room for dialogue and growth. With each interaction, Marcus was becoming a stronger and more empathetic leader. He started to implement feedback more frequently, asking everyone to share their opinions, not just about the project, but about the workplace environment in general. This change triggered a ripple effect. People began to feel more comfortable suggesting improvements, and the team started to develop in ways he had never imagined. After a few weeks, Marcus organized a final project presentation for the board of directors. He knew the team was nervous, but also excited. It was a reflection of the teamwork they had built. Looking at each member, he felt proud. Each of them had contributed to the project's success, and that made all the difference. During the presentation, when the team began to share their ideas, Marcus saw the transformation that had occurred. The voices were strong, the ideas were clear, and the enthusiasm was palpable. In the end, the board was impressed and approved the project. The team cheered, and Marcus felt a wave of happiness. He knew that the success was not just his, but belonged to everyone. As they left the meeting room, Anna turned to him and said, "You really made a difference, Marcus. Thank you for listening to us." Her words echoed in his mind, reminding him that true leadership was about serving others. By the end of it all, Marcus was more aware of his responsibilities and the impact he had on the people around him. He had learned that the true strength of a leader comes from their ability to unite and inspire. And although the journey was still far from over, he now had the confidence and determination to face any challenge, knowing he was surrounded by a strong and united team. Marcus witnessed the transformation in his team and in himself. He realized that true leadership was not just about achieving goals, but about creating an environment where each member felt valued and comfortable sharing their ideas. The atmosphere in the company had changed, and Marcus knew that this change was the result of his choice to listen to and respect every voice in the room. With that, he became more than a boss. He became a leader. The final project presentation was a milestone. The sparkle in his team's eyes as they shared their contributions was proof of how much they had grown together. The board's approval was not just a professional achievement for Marcus, but a recognition of the collective effort. He felt a wave of joy seeing everyone celebrating, understanding that the success belonged to all of them. Every laugh, every hug, and every word of gratitude reinforced the idea that they had built something special. However, Marcus's journey also had its challenges. Richard's distrust still loomed as a shadow in his path. During the presentation, Marcus noticed that Richard hesitated to open up completely. After the meeting, he decided it was time to take a step further. Marcus approached Richard and sincerely said, "I see your potential and want you to be part of this. Let's work together to overcome our differences." This gentle yet firm approach broke down the barriers that still existed between them. Richard, touched by Marcus's willingness, began to open up, and together they managed to establish a new level of understanding and collaboration. The leadership experience shaped Marcus into a stronger and more empathetic man. He learned that vulnerability and honesty are the keys to building lasting relationships. Reflecting on his journey, he realized that every challenge faced alongside his team was an opportunity for growth. He understood that true success was not just in the goals achieved, but in the lessons learned along the way. Marcus also recognized that life is made up of cycles. Through the ups and downs, he remembered that every new beginning brings with it the chance to do better. He felt grateful for turning a moment of conflict into an opportunity to unite his team, and looking to the future, he knew they would be ready to face any challenge that arose. In one last conversation with Anna, she said, "You not only changed our team, but you also changed yourself. This journey has been a true life lesson." Her words echoed in Marcus's mind. He had grown not only as a leader, but as a human being. Now Marcus looked to the horizon, aware that life is full of challenges but also opportunities. He knew that each of us has the power to transform our experiences into learning and growth. He also understood that by cultivating relationships and supporting one another, we can all achieve great things. And so Marcus became a symbol of hope and resilience. He not only overcame the challenges he faced, but also used his experiences to inspire others to do the same. He made an invitation to his team. Let's continue together, learning and growing, because every step we take is a step toward a better future. Now, reflecting on his journey, Marcus invites you, the reader, to share your own experiences of overcoming and transformation. What have you learned along the way? How did you bounce back after a challenge? Share your reflections in the comments and join this conversation. Remember that your stories can inspire others. And if you enjoyed this account, like and subscribe for more stories that resonate with real life and teach us about friendship, resilience, and growth. It's time to take action and make a difference together.